So here we are on step 2, and step 1 was fitting. We got all of our fitting done. I've cut out my blouse, and the good news is I've cut it out and I don't have to worry about fitting anything because it's all done. Now again, when I cut out, just to make sure I'm sewing the right piece to the right piece, the right sides are to the outside here. And the reason being, and you'll see it as I went along, and this is the side that sews to the next front piece. I just want to make sure I mark that. It's just too easy to do to flip it around. So if you notice, I cut mine longer. I cut my vest 6 inches longer. This is going to be a vest. I cut it 6 inches longer. And the pattern that I'm using, the pattern of the fabric, has a vertical to it. So what you're going to see is that I put the vertical up and down on the body, and I put the vertical horizontal on the yoke, just to give it a little bit of interest. And then, you know, to make sure you could kind of see the yoke. There's no reason to have that yoke if we're not going to do something with it. It's for fitting, so I mean, you don't have to, but so I know that these two pieces go together there. So there I can sew them, and I've got them on the right side. So I can sew them together with a fair amount of confidence that I've got the right piece to the right piece. All right, so we're just going to sew. And now this is the yoke, the front yoke, and you can see that what I've done on this is I've cut it horizontal. That's the way it goes, and I've cut it horizontal. So again, my right sides are to the outside. This is a kind of a knit fabric. I love it. It's beautiful. The back side of this shows the knit, so I don't want to show that. I want to show the non-knit side. And just be careful that you've got the right place to the right piece. You know, I am not a fan of unpicking, so be careful. And I'm just following my directions. I'm doing exactly as the directions have me do. That's the front, and now we'll do the back. And the back's a little bit easier because it's cut on a center back fold, and so it's a little, you know, it's harder to sew the wrong side to the wrong side, but I'm still gonna, there's just too many times I've sewn the wrong side to the wrong side, so I want to make sure I don't. It's just really not fun to unpick. It just spends a lot of time doing nothing. So I just put little pins in my pattern. And then I can be assured that the right side's going to the right side. I think it saves time. Probably takes a little bit of time to put them in, but I think ultimately it saves time. Because this fabric's really thick, just so that it gets evenly sewn, I'm lifting up the presser foot. Otherwise you wouldn't need to. Just I don't want the presser foot to grab one section, not the other, and it's because it's thick, it has a tendency that it can do that. So there's the body. It's just beautiful. And then the back yoke. And again, this fabric, because it has a really pretty line to it, you know, it'd be pretty cut on a bias. It'd be pretty cut a lot of ways. I just went ahead and did it opposite. One horizontal and one vertical. Obviously, the body I would do vertical just because it will give you, you know, some height. And because there's a little bit of ease in the yoke to the body, I'm going to make sure that I've got the center fronts pinned. I'm sorry, center backs. Center backs pinned. I don't even just pin the center back, but I just want to pin the edges there so that I can make sure that I'm giving it the right tension in between. I'm sewing the yoke is up. Doesn't make any difference. All right, really simple to do. Hopefully y'all are just sewing along with me. And I'm just going to press this, and then the next step we're going to go to the sewing machine. All right, so I went ahead and I pressed my fronts so that they had just, you know, a really nice press to them. You want to press the seams down. Y'all know how to do that. Okay, then I'm going to sew on the front facing. And again, I'm just following the guide sheets. The front facing goes on like that. So what I've done with the front facing is I have, if you notice, it's the concave part, the part of the facing that comes in, and I'm showing you this on the paper because you can see it a little bit better than we get to the dark fabric. This portion right here where it curves in, this is not the not the part that you're going to sew to the blouse, and the picture in the pattern shows it really well. So this is the edge that I'm going to press in a seam allowance. So if I show you the same thing here, you can see that this is this. But now all I've done is I've pressed in the seam allowance. So I've just pressed that in and to the wrong side. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this to the front, and it's going to finish up the front edge by turning to the inside, except this is actually, this is this side. Okay, so let me do that again so you can see. This is, you turn it in, and it's going to end up like that. So sometimes I think if you go to how it ends up, you'll see it. So you're going to sew the right side to the wrong side of the garment, and you don't need to sew along this portion right there. You can just start, you can kind of see where it changes directions. You can start stitching right there because all of that's going to be covered by the collar. So I'm stitching the right side of the facing to the wrong side of the blouse. And I'm stitching, I'm using 3.5 because it's a heavier fabric. So I'm using a longer seam allowance. And when I cut my front facing out, I actually added my 6 inches in length also. Okay, so now as you can see, I was on the inside. This is all going to turn to the outside. I'm going to press it, and then I'll press this down to make that front facing. So I'm going to press it. I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are back, and you can see that I've wrapped it now to the inside. And it will follow the neck edge. This piece there, it will follow the neck edge because that's just built into the pattern. And so the collar will come down to here. You want to make sure that you've got that turned under the whole 3/8. Now just one tip while I'm doing this is that's the seam that I just sewed. And you want to, when I press it, you can see there that that seam is slightly to the inside. It's not right on the edge. So this is the wrong side. The facing wraps around to the front. You don't need any interfacing because you can see I've got at least 2 whole layers. So I don't need anything additional. And then what I'm going to do now is just come in to hold the band in place. And you can stitch just 1 row if you want, or you can stitch 2 rows. Now, the coolest, and you can see there's the flap there. The coolest thing I think about this whole method is, you know, and again, it's very factory, is that I can add in piping, trim, anything I want to. And that's actually what I'm going to do on mine. I've got a little leather piping, and I'm just going to add that little leather piping. I think it just takes the vest from being beautiful to extraordinary. And I'm going to just sew right along that line. So I'm going to put my piping in. I don't really need a foot. The edge of my piping, I'm going to, well, you'll kind of see it. I'll sew a little bit and then I'll show it to you. I'm just going to tuck this right underneath as I'm sewing. Because my foot has little marks on it, I'm following those marks so that my stitching and my piping and everything kind of stays consistent. I didn't pre-cut my piping because I'm starting from, you know, you don't need to. Just throw in your piping and then you can make the piping. I bought this piping. This is just a black leather piping. I buy it like 10 yards at a time just because I love it, and I throw it in everything. You can wash it. Don't think that if you put it on a garment, you can't wash your garment. That's just not true. I get it from Leather Impact in New York. Little infomercial there for Leather Impact. And as long as you are coming up this front and you have marks, like I have marks on my foot, so my piping is going to the edge of this part. You know, my foot has little lines on it. And my trim is going under the next little part. So as I'm going along, just kind of keep it flat and keep going, and it'll automatically be straight, beautiful. You'll have it all perfect. It'll look like you're just this wonderful seamstress, which I know I'm not, but, you know, I know I get a lot of practice. I think practice really makes this a little bit better. Now, I'm not putting leather piping in my collar. I'm not doing it anywhere. I just wanted it up the front. I just think it's really, really beautiful up the front. So that's all I'm doing. So as I wrap it around, just going to take it all the way into the neck edge. And then I'm going to cut that off. And the collar, like I said, the collar will pick it up. You're better off to cut a little bit extra just to make sure the collar gets it. And then you can see that there's the piping up the front. It's really beautiful. Now I have an option, and I'm going to on this because I'm going to probably use snaps up the front of this. I think snaps will look really cool. And again, very contemporary. So I'm going to stitch now the second row. And what I do is figure out how far it is from this edge and then stitch another row. This is completely optional. Some blouses, vest, whatever, when they have a front tab, they have stitches on both sides, and others don't. So this is not really anything that is, you know, a big deal either way. It's called Style Choice. All right, so there you can see I have more of a tab looking. Let me make sure you can see that. It's just looks a little bit more like a tab because it's got stitching on both sides. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same to the other side. I'm going to do the other front. And that way, when the two tabs come together, you've got piping on the outside of each, which I just think that's beautiful. But while I'm here at the machine, I'm going to go ahead and do my collar. And then I'll press it all, and then that will be it for today, because what we're going to do is we're going to put the collar on and finish it up next time. So see how easy this is, and you guys can certainly do this and stay with me. On the collar, you can look at the instructions, but this, where it curves up, that's the outside edge. Where it curves down is the neck edge. So all I'm going to do is sew the curved edge that curves up got 2 layers. And then I'm going to cross my corners on each end. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold on my stitch line, fold on my stitch line, and when I bring it to the side, I'll have a beautiful corner. It's like perfect. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to press, and then we're going to be ready to put the collar on. We'll do that next week and finish it up. So we'll see you next time. Happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.